Hi, everyone. Welcome. It looks like we have quite a large crowd here tonight, borderline 50 people, which is awesome. Welcome to the OMSCS Digital Seminar Series. I'm Brittany Aiello. If we haven't had the chance to meet in person at an event, I manage communications for the OMSCS program, work for the Center for 21st Century Universities at Georgia Tech. Both of those entities, the program and the research center, have partnered to bring this to life with Shindig, this idea that we had to provide more career development resources for the OMSCS students. So a little bit more about the seminar series in case you're interested before we get going here. The idea came from the same vein of thought that prompted the creation of the program. So we thought that online students at Georgia Tech should be able to have accessible top-tier educational experiences. And so the creation of this is just another way that we are hoping to provide you with that and in the program. And if you're a prospective student, answer some questions you may have. And if you're an alum, continue to support. The Georgia Tech community is very closely knit, and so we love to continue to support our students even after them. And speaking of former students, we're going to be chatting with a former OMSCS student, Scott, who has now moved on to become a VP at JPMorgan Chase Co. So we're excited about that. To get going, for those of you who haven't used the platform before, we're going to show a super short video just kind of explaining some of the icons that you see and what to do with it. And so Tara is going to cue that up here for us in just a second.
Welcome to Shindig, the video chat event provider. Click on any participant's image to engage in a private video chat. Double-click on another participant to add them to your existing conversation. Click the arrow to exit. You can also send an instant message, either to an individual or to your entire room. Want to interact with the host? Use the buttons on the lower right. Click Raise Hand to signal to the event administrator that you want to be brought on stage. Otherwise, submit a question to the host via text. If the system has not automatically detected your webcam and microphone, roll over your image and click Settings. Click your image to enable your working webcam. Choose a working microphone by selecting the option with volume indicators that flash green in response to your voice. We hope this was helpful. Enjoy the event.
A little bit about the platform, a few additional things, and start chatting with Scott. Don't forget that at any time you can raise your hand, send a question using the text chat. We want this to be conversation. If you are a bold individual and want to come up on stage with us and in person, students have done that in past seminars, and we love the interaction. So you are more than welcome to raise your hand and ask to do that you out. Or we can just ask your question via the text chat. So we'll be getting to those as we go. And so feel free to thinking throughout the conversation. So let's share a little bit about Scott before we get going. So Scott and I, actually, as many of you probably have gotten to know one another throughout your course in the program, since I manage communications for the program, and Scott was in early adopters of OMSCS. He was in one of our first cohorts. He's very active on social, and we got to know each other that way. And he was always helpful trying to promote the program and support the program's success. So when Scott graduated, he came to Georgia Tech, and he and his family, and I was able and honored to meet them when they came to Atlanta so that he could walk and receive his diploma at graduation. And when we were thinking up this seminar series, one of the first stories and people that popped into my mind to share their experiences was Scott, because he has such a unique perspective. His motivations in joining the program and what he's done since are really amazing. So without further ado, let's bring Scott up on the stage.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, everything's great. Welcome. So,
I was looking for the stairs to get up on the stage. I couldn't find the stairs, but that magically appeared, huh?
Oh, well, we are glad that you made it. For the Scott, I think it would be great if you could share with the audience a little bit about your background, who you are, what you do in your current role.
Well, first and foremost, let me share with everyone, I'm very excited to be here. When Brittany reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in doing this forum and platform, I was excited because one of the things I did enjoy more than anything else is the camaraderie of working with everyone in the program. We were all sharing the same goals and similar goals, and I've always enjoyed helping others, and at the same time they would help me when I needed it. So this is a fantastic, even though I graduated, to be a part of this program and continue to be a part of it is something that's very exciting for me. So thank you for taking the time out to allow me to share my experiences with you and to allow me to continue to contribute and pay it forward. So this is also very interactive, so feel free to ask any questions at any time, and we'll go from there. Okay. So a little bit about myself. I currently work at JPMorgan Chase. And prior to actually being at JPMorgan Chase, I was a consultant for well over 20 years. And I remember that because the day I started consulting was literally the day my daughter was born. And so you now know I have a 21-year-old daughter because I've been with JPMorgan Chase for a year. I also have a 20-year-old son. My daughter just graduated college, and my son is still in college. So it was a unique experience for them too, because there's not too many people that they knew where their father went back to school and continued to evolve, right, and constantly changing, and that was something interesting for them. My educational background was kind of interesting because I started young. I actually started college when I was 17 as a pre-med major, and then eventually I switched to math and computers, but life got in the way. And I actually stopped going to school in my senior year of my freshman year, first semester senior year. And then I started consulting. I was doing very well. I was very successful. I worked with financial firms, pharmaceutical firms, worked with Time. And so then the opportunity came for me to be able to finish my bachelor's degree. And when I realized that I was only 14 credits shy from graduating, I signed up, and immediately within 6 months, I graduated with a degree. 2 years later, on the news, in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, CNN, so they were talking about this pilot program that Georgia Tech was about to embark on, and it was the OMSCS program, and that definitely caught my attention. At first, it was Georgia Tech, right? And I mean, one of the leading technical institutions in the world. Of course, I heard of it, and I was very intrigued. I've always worked in IT, and I thought it was a long shot, but for $50 to apply for the program, I definitely thought it was worth it. To my surprise, I was actually accepted into the pilot program that started in January 2014. There were 381 of us that actually started, and I am completely amazed to see that there's almost 6,000 people that enrolled up to now. I mean, this is 2017, in 3 years, it exploded from 300 to 6,000. And I think that's a testament to the success of the program. Anyway, so that's a little bit about myself, and I'll be more than happy to share even more if you have additional questions. And let's go back to Brittany.
Yeah, so we are so thrilled to have you here, a member of the original cohort. Students have graduated at this point, and so it's exciting to hear what people are doing after the program. But I guess my first question, why you initially decided to apply. I know you said kind of why not, but we were hoping to get out of the program or achieve.
Well, being a consultant and now at this stage of my life, right, where I have my kids that are grown and I'm now looking toward establishing a firm retirement plan, I also wanted to start really taking a foothold in a company and invest myself and grow. And I thought by having, and within IT, having a graduate degree from an institution with the reputation and the credibility of Georgia Tech, I pretty much was hoping that I'd be able to write my own ticket in terms of where I can go. But more importantly, it also is a way, a lot of times, like as I said earlier, life gets in the way. So sometimes you need sort of a discipline, something to help you stay focused on a goal. So many of us, if we're in IT, we're always learning about new technologies. And here was a way where we could stay disciplined, stay focused, and stay on what's hot. So today, obviously, machine learning, AI is very, very, you can't go a day in technology without hearing any buzzwords related to that. And surely they already have machine learning and AI in the program. Georgia Tech was building it up as part of the campus. And let me say that too. One of the other things that I thought was intriguing is basically, even though it's online, and I didn't really have, let's say, a very positive view of online medium because there wasn't a lot of structure, there wasn't a lot of discipline, and it was very hard to ensure that you have the curriculum to keep you focused and to keep you getting the feedback that you need, typically from a professor and from fellow students. So that was something that I definitely found intriguing with the program. I thought it would make it be successful, at least for me. And certainly it had proven to be so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, somebody just asked, so how did, and you already answered this to a certain extent, but so how did it your career? You were a consultant before, and I know you can't share a ton of detail about exactly what you do for JPMorgan Chase. Or James Bond, and not being able to share.
So how did it help me get that full-time job, basically, right? How did it help me with that career? I think first and foremost, it helps you build confidence in yourself. The fact is that it's a very intense program, and you're covering a lot of materials, technical and otherwise, conceptual, abstract, and what it does is that you're speaking with people and professions. You exhibit a certain level of confidence that you may not have had before. So I found that to be probably the most valuable, that you can build confidence in yourself in what you're doing. That, hey, I developed these applications. I developed what I thought was a very complex concept. I was able to understand it, apply it, and then pay it and use it. And so when I went on interviews, I was able to exude that level of confidence to the people that were interviewing me and the people that I was working with. And also networking is very important too. I mean, I wasn't in the dungeon. People knew that I was in the program. And I constantly talked about it. I constantly talked about the different type of programs that they had, the courses. I encouraged other people to look at it because now not only was it about me, but other people were also interested in developing their skills and their knowledge as well. So the program just kind of perpetuated a momentum that allowed me to continue to talk to people about what I was doing. And that in itself helped me get this job because people that I knew from Citigroup and even JPMorgan Chase knew what I was doing and what I was accomplishing. And that helped me get my foot in the door to begin with. So tell people about it.
Yeah, so it looks like Jay is wanting to ask a question, if you don't mind, Scott. And he wants to ask in person.
This is very cool technology. It looks like Jay is he's mobile at the moment, and that's probably why maybe he was just having a hard time getting connected. Hopefully, Jay will be able to ask this question.
All right. Well, let's go on to my next question. See if we can get that on the back end if Tara can get that figured out so that Jay can come up in a minute.
Cool.
So we already talked a little bit. So going into the program, you kind of a little bit on a whim, but we're just excited about it, applied. While you were in the program, what sort of tips and tricks, advice would you have about things that are helpful in balancing your personal life with your work life, with your school life? I mean, it's all, you're saying you have 20-something-year-old kids and they're in college and you're trying to support them. Talk a little bit about that experience. I'm sure people are interested or have similar experiences.
Okay, so so you're getting into the program, you don't have to pick the specialization right away. So, but you do kind of want to focus on one or a couple of these specializations. Set up the program. What courses you want to take, right? You have core courses, and you have the free elective, if you will, the free courses that you want to take. So the first thing you have to figure out is based on your workload. I believe 97% of the people in the program are working full time. So you're juggling between working full time, going to school, and family. I try to set some time on the weekends for the family. So I didn't always disappear, except for when it came crunch time, when projects were due, midterms and finals were coming up. And they understood that, so I let them know ahead of time that I won't be available during these times because I'll be focusing on this, right, project or exams. But the first thing in the beginning or prior to each semester, I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to take 1 or 2 classes. And I promised I would never take 3 because it's way overwhelming. It's kind of hard to balance that, although there are people in the program that have done that. So kudos to them. And I do confess that I did do 3 classes, but in an offbeat way, and I'll explain that in a second. The first thing is that there are some classes that are going to be very, very heavy with respect to the amount of course load activity. There are some classes that are manageable, and then classes, and the way you find out, and I'm being generic here, is there is I think there's a peer review of all the classes, and and there are some classes that are front loaded. That means there's a lot of work in the beginning. It kind of evens out. I call it the dumbbell effect. It's very heavy in the beginning because you're up starting everything. Then it kind of levels off during the semester, and at the end is when you're crunching up to finish everything up. There's a few courses like that, and then there's some courses where it's pretty level, and then it gets heavy at the end, and then there's some that are heavy in the beginning. So what I try to do is talking to other students that have taken the classes is to get a sense of what the workload is, try to coordinate that. And when I do that, I also, looked at my work schedule if I had to travel. That happens too. You run into travel. There are some classes that, depending on when you travel, you can coordinate your class with the travel, if you have to travel for business. So I kept that in mind. And then it's about commitment, right? So you've kind of, the programming courses, there are some that are very, very heavy. So you have to block your time, whether it's after work. So there will be some, and I'm sure all of you know if you're already in the program, there are some days where you could be spending a lot of hours. You have a very long day. And I confess I had a couple of all-nighters, but fortunately it wasn't a habit and it didn't happen that often. And the other thing I also try to do is not put off any work where it had a deadline. If I knew something was due the following week, I hit it early. And if I finished it early, great. Then I wasn't under a crunch and I didn't have, to worry about the deadline. There were people that, especially when you do group projects, that like to push things toward the end. The problem is when you push things toward the end, you really don't have any extra time to work on something, and you are crunching. So those are some of the things. There is a balance. It's just preparing and doing your homework, so to speak. So understand what classes you're signing up for. It's not that hard to find out how the curriculum works in that particular program, whatever course you're taking. And of course, more important, even all of that, when all of that's happening, make some time for yourself too. Give yourself a chance to take a break from everything, because that will also help so you don't burn out. So that's my answer.
Awesome. So I think we have a question to kind of continue piggybacking off of this discussion of balancing life. And I think a student is interested about the age range within the cohorts, what that looks like. I mean, were your fellow students younger than you, older than you, about your age? Was it evenly dispersed? What was that experience like for you?
Well, actually, it's very interesting. At least when we started small, the dichotomy or the spectrum was quite large. And interestingly, a lot of the statistics that came out initially was comparing the on-campus versus online. I think the average age of campus was around 24, and the average age online was about 37. There was someone who was well in their 60s that were in the program, and then there were those that just finished their bachelor's degree and got in. So you pretty much had the wide spectrum. And by and large, everybody worked well. You can tell the more senior people, right, that have been in the business, that tend to be more disciplined and more structured, and the young were right out of school. So you can tell, you can see that they're anxious and excited, and in a way, raw in terms of skills and discipline. So in some cases, they wound up complementing each other. We all did. So you have the young with the energy, the old with the maturity and and seniority, lessons learned, and able to combine all those skills together, help formulate and create a lot of successful projects. So, and not only that, but I was also glad to see. I remember when I was an undergrad and I was taking computer classes, the more advanced the computer classes became, the less there were of girls, right, in the class. This is when I was younger. And I was disappointed in seeing that because it became a very, male shifted type of program but in this particular program, I found that there were more women involved and all the classes, and they participated just as much as the men. And I thought that was very good too, to see.
Yeah, I mean, we actually recently ran a bunch of data on the program, and we do have a significantly higher rate percentage of women in the program than on-campus program at Georgia Tech, but also just in general in all Masters of Computer Science programs. And so that's exciting for us to see. And we have a women in OMSCS program group called Nerdy Bones. And Scott, you're very familiar. A lot of your fellow original cohort members were the folks that helped get that going. And so, yeah, it's the community is really fantastic. And maybe you could talk a little bit about your experiences with the community, connecting with other students, what ways that happens. I mean, what was that like for you?
So, and when I opened up, I indicated that having the camaraderie and working with the fellow students, that was more invaluable than anything. I think that also, to be honest, took a lot of the professors by surprise. There was so much more interaction between the students and supporting each other than they've ever seen before. Because on campus, it's a classroom setting. Everybody sits at their desk, the professor is lecturing from beginning to end. They have some questions, a Q&A at the end, and that's the end of the course. We're here because you're online throughout the day, 24/7, right? You get on whenever you want. Invariably, if you have a question and you're stuck on something or something not clear, you can ask a question. Typically, you're thinking you'll give it to the TA or to the professor, and one of the fellow students will come by and say, "Hey, well, I had the same problem, and I figured it out doing this," and then you guys get connected with Slack and with all the other technologies that's available. So when Brittany said I was in social, whenever I was on, there was a group of us that were always out there, either trying to help, except for example, I confess when my head was down because I was busy doing the work that I had to get done. I wasn't so active, but when I resurfaced and I saw some students getting challenged where I was, I also helped. So that was by far, I think it took a lot of people by surprise, especially in the beginning because they didn't know what to expect. But perfect example is the Google groups, right? The Google Plus that we have. That organization is unlike anything anybody has ever seen before, and it's completely student sponsored, right? It's completely student driven. Started off with Nate Payne, and for the initial cohort, some of us really got to know each other very well. So Nate, there's Bobby, who was last month's speaker. She was very active and very, very helpful and supportive in more ways than I can imagine. She also was a TA. I also TA'd in my last semester. I was a TA for educational technology for Dr. David Joyner because I enjoyed the course and I enjoyed helping people. So that course, that was where I confess I actually took 3 classes. I was a student in 2 and I was a TA for the 3rd one. So that was just my way. It was my last semester, so I figured, okay, if I'm going to burn out, I might as well burn out when I finish up across the finish line. So that's where I found to be invaluable to the program too.
Yeah, so actually I was about to ask a follow-up question to what you were saying about networking, but a participant asked, how would you recommend we network, especially coming from someone who's trying to make a shift from IT work to development? What are the best ways to do that within the program?
Okay. So development is very, very challenging, especially today, because software engineering and development is now, I think, is approaching more of an encyclopedic type of knowledge. It's very different than the type of courses that we're taking. We're taking courses that start with an abstract. And I need to confess also, when I went into this program, I'm thinking master's graduate. There's going to be a lot of theoretical, a lot of abstractivity to what we're doing, and then some application. But in this program, there's a lot of hands-on. You're going into AI and machine learning, you're not going to use a library that's publicly available, like in Python, scikit-learn. You're going to write all of the logic and the algorithms yourself. And when you do, you get a deeper understanding of the concept, and you can apply it. As opposed to using it, you're building it and you're applying it yourself. Now, with the software engineering and becoming a developer, it's a different type of regimen and a different type of approach. It becomes more of a structured. And I was actually just having this conversation with someone the other day. The training that you need to have in order to successfully transition over to a developer or software engineering, something like the hackathons. So you sign up for hackathons, you participate in hackathon. That gives you the discipline and the skill set to be able to program under a specific timeline, right? So typically what happens in an interview, you're giving a challenge and you're given 45 minutes to do it. And that's a lot different than when you're in this program where you're given a week or two to build a really mature and complex solution. So there's the way to prepare. It's a different type of approach. It's not something that you're going to get in one particular course. It's something that with the skills that you do enhance, and I do have to say this, your programming skills, if they weren't that strong before the program, they'll become much stronger by the end. But it's a different type of preparation that you need to do for the development type of work. And the other thing to say is that it's very different when you're doing a Google, an Apple, Microsoft, Groupon, and Square. All those are the top software houses, if you will, or development houses. But if you go to the other type of companies, it's not going to be that kind of a high pressure exam where they're looking for the best of the best. If you want to be the best of the best, then you have to work at it. And that's basically what I advised the person I was talking to a few days ago.
Yeah, so something that I'm hearing you say, and I'm kind of reading between the lines, and correct me if I'm wrong, and Bobby was also saying this, and so was Ebony, is that an online program will it bolster your career as much as it's the thought that the program is ultimately what you make of it. So correct. There are plenty of people who have graduated from this program who had a significantly lower level of involvement than you or Bobby, who's now earning her PhD, or, we were talking about Tia Pope, one of the co-founders of Nerdy Bones, who was earning 2 masters at the same time, this being one of them, and was the TA. And, it's really what you make of it. It's your experience. And there are so many opportunities to get plugged in, to attend conferences. Every year we take 20 OMSCS students to Grace Hopper, Celebration of Women in Computing. We take OMSCS students to Tapia, Celebration of Diversity in Computing. And, all of these companies are curious about wanting to be hired by or at those conferences hiring. We had SCS students who went with us to Grace Hopper, was given a job offer on the spot from a company. But you have to seek out those opportunities within the program, and you have to reach out to other students, to faculty. Last session we had a few people say, well, how do I become a team, how to go about? And it's like, you've got to reach out. You have to because even in an on-campus graduate program, handed to you, you have to really work to get out of the program what you're wanting. And so one of the audience members' response to all of that. So did you take advantage of any mentors, like as far as mentorship, guidance? What was your experience with that?
Okay, so actually, I in my last semester I was officially the mentor. That's the program when I was a TA. I mentored 12 of our fellow students in their projects with educational technology. For me, and that's an excellent question, right? Because one of the things is that you go in here, you're driven, and you want to be able to meet these challenges head on, and you want to try to do as much of it on your own as possible. But sometimes you have to work. You need to ask for help, right? So typically, a good percentage of the work that you're doing is going to be part of a group. So the mentoring really was just a collaboration and a partnership that you wind up forging with your classmates. I didn't actually seek out specifically a professor. Maybe it's questions that I would ask would be on our forum, and the TAs would typically answer. So I always took advantage of the fact that if I had any questions, I would typically ask. Although, interestingly, where we typically get stuck in whatever the assignment is or whatever the project is, invariably somebody is asking the same question as you are. So I usually find the answers out there, or at least the clue that you need to take it one step further. And in some cases, I also, because for me, I wanted to learn this, I wouldn't look at the answers sometimes. I knew that it was there. It was kind of my safety net, that I give myself a limit in terms of how much time and effort to put forth a particular problem, and then I would go. But I will say this, that was me. For you, there's so many resources out there. There are your fellow students, there's a lot of people out there that want to help each other become successful. You can reach out to a fellow student, a TA, professors, they've all been always accessible. So I knew that going in, and for everyone else, take advantage of it. It's there for us.
Yeah. Or just a reminder, keep going. If you turn your video camera, and you can ask an in-person video question, but it has to already be on in order for you to have that option. So Tara, I just wanted to that. And yeah, keep the questions coming. Y'all are asking great questions. We don't have any at the moment, so we're just going to keep going with what we were planning on chatting about, but feel free to jump in. So let's talk a little bit more your life now, and can say about your work now and how the program has kind of set you up for success there.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to be very general. A lot of the skills that that I wound up reinforcing. I mean, I've been in IT for well over 20 years, as I mentioned. So you wind up developing a number of skills. What this program helped me do is just really stay focused and accomplish. If I finished the program in 2 years and 3 months, right? So I did it in roughly 6 semesters. So I had to be very, very disciplined in terms of getting the projects done, staying focused on the goals and objective. And that helps me today with the job that I do. I just basically finished my first year there. And without, I just actually did my performance review. I had to do a self-assessment. And a lot of what I wrote, I think the background that I was able to pick up through Georgia Tech helped. And again, I think it's the discipline, is to be able to stay focused and to be driven. So my day-to-day, here's some of the things that I do, right? I am working with sort of like the data science, right? I work with data. And I'm not doing necessarily the number crunching, but I'm working on the strategies. So to understand how data science works, to understand how that even the machine learning and AI, and I'm not even applying it yet, right? Because we have to build a foundation first before we can do the strategic direction. But what I am doing is I find that there's a lot of parallel in terms of the work that I was doing. And I talk about the core courses, right? The supporting courses, understanding networking, understanding some of the operating system. Don't really do that day to day, right? I'm not working on operating system, worrying about parallel processing or P-threads or storage, disk arrays or anything to that effect. But I am looking at a strategic direction of software development, and I repeat data science a couple of times because it's basically becoming instilled. Everything is about big data. So what I do say is that the confidence that I have, I do know what I'm talking about before. And the other thing too is that I never really stopped learning, right? I'm still picking up new things. I still am learning about cloud, right? Cloud is very, very active also. We talk about machine learning and AI, dealing with cloud technologies, figuring out strategies on how do we take today's technology and incorporate and understand the realities of the benefit of the cloud. So picking up, that's the other thing too, that you wind up getting a skill, is that you're starting to recondition yourself to pick up new technologies in a relatively short period of time. If you think about what you're doing in 16 weeks, you went from a certain level of knowledge with a particular topic, and by the end of 16 weeks, you know it pretty well. And that's what this program is. It's very intense, but that is also a skill that you can apply to everything new that's coming out. If you're fuzzy about what the cloud is and what it can do and how you can take advantage of it for your company, having the skill, you'll be able to pick up those skills, understand that knowledge, and apply it, and that gets noticed. And that's the difference for my day-to-day. I have a specific job, but I am helping 4 or 5 different other areas within the company that's not related to my job, because I'm able to apply myself, and this helps me do that. And so I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah. So this next question from the audience is plays off of that. But so if you were to start all over again, if you were to imagine yourself before you started the program and could provide advice and perspective to potential students, what preparation, both technically, things like undergrad CS work, what sort of preparation in that way would you, and also life-wise, preparing.
Yes, this is a very, very good question. Josh, thank you for asking that question. Because that's always a good thing. If I could go back in time and do basically what do you want to do? What do you need to do to basically ensure your success in the program, right? So first and foremost, this is fundamentally a deep core computer science program. I'm going to do the easy question first, and that's the math, right? We talked about machine learning, and we talked about AI. So it's very heavy in statistics and probabilities, more probabilities than statistics, if I were to throw that in there. So if you were kind of weak in those areas, or you haven't really dabbled in statistics and probabilities, you certainly would want to do that. It's not that if you go in cold, it just means that you have to spend that much more time investing in yourself to picking up that knowledge in order to be able to do the work you need to do. So it's either you do it beforehand. So the first thing I would say is, in terms of math, there's a couple of things. There's the statistics and probability, first and foremost. There's some calculus, but in almost all the courses, it's good to have the calculus, but they'll give you enough knowledge to what you need to do your job. You don't have to take Calc 1, 2, and 3 in order to be successful in the program. It just makes it that much easier for you to understand how something is working if you had calculus, as an example. And then so that's math. And computer science. This is computer, so you want to have some level of programming experience. If you have no programming experience at all, you need to have some. So I was out of school for probably I would say at least 15 to 20 years before I got back into this level of programming. Right, I haven't touched programming since the late 80s. So when I took the operating system course and I had to pick up C, I think I went back to my shelf over there. I had to brush off all the cobwebs and the dust out of this C book that I had, and I had to start going through it all over again. So, but it took me a week. It took me a week or two. C language, it doesn't really have it's not a rich command set, so it's pretty straightforward, but very, very tricky, as we all should know. So programming skills, fundamentally, at the minimum, a fundamental core level to be able to do basic programming to begin with. If you have no programming, you need to have that. That's very important. Also, with computer science concepts, no memory, disk, CPU. If you have no idea what this architecture is behind a computer, that could slow you down. Again, everything that you're lacking, you will wind up bringing up. It's just, instead of just doing the course curriculum, you'll be doing the supplemental learning if you're not ready for it. And so it's an excellent question. I think there's more to be said. I think there's OMSCS and Reddit, where people talk about some of what's the best ways to prepare. So, that's out there. And the other thing too, if you're already in the program, you can ask the very same question, and you will get people that will help you. They'll tell you what you need to know for each course at the course level to prepare.
It seems to be working this time. There we go. Hey, I had asked about in a comment, and I'll ask it live now. If you're doing big data in addition to, I guess you're in the finance industry, obviously. How important is Python becoming, and things like NumPy and Pandas and so on? How valuable are skills in that specific arena there? And do you have any other insights as far as if you're going to develop your chops at all? Where would you focus if you get the opportunities? Like, I've had 2 classes now that have been Python based, and I didn't have Python experience, but I'm gaining it, and I just didn't know how deeply I want to dig in on that. If it's a valuable skill, that's marketable, from day one on the job.
Fantastic question. You're not wasting your time with Python. Python is definitely very, very, very valuable. When it comes to the machine learning and AI, you'll find most applications being developed in Python, Java, and R, right? R language. So while I was in the program, I did Java, I did Python. Like if you haven't done Java yet, you will. Python. And what I didn't dabble in while I was in the program was R, but believe it or not, with this particular job, I went to Pluralsight and I took up 3 or 4 different courses in R because that also had a lot of different activities. So Python is definitely worth learning. And in fact, if you look outside of the program and you look at different type of machine learning algorithms and examples, almost all of it is in R. You got TensorFlow, you got all libraries related. I mean, Python and Python specifically. But like TensorFlow, I was just looking into TensorFlow and how it works, and I used the Python library to do that. Does that help?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So
awesome. Thank you. All right. Another question. What was your favorite class in the OMSCS program?
That's always I can go with the most memorable, right? The first semester I took the software development programming because that's the one that got me kickstarted into the program. My favorite class, I'm going to say the most challenging class that I had was the AI course, right, by Tad Starner. Yeah, he was a professor. I was also excited that even though he was recorded, Peter Norvik was a guest speaker, guest professor. So I had a lot of fun with the AI course. It was very challenging to begin with, and it was also a very different type of approach to teaching, but typical of Georgia Tech. Basically, they challenge you beyond what they think a typical student can do, and then it's up to you to push yourself as far as you can go. And so I think AI was by far the most challenging and the most fun, but educational technology was also another fantastic course that was designed by Dr. David Joyner. And the concept there was to give us an experience of what it's like to go through a PhD program in a very small sense. But you go through the same kind of steps, but in a period of a semester instead of 4 to 6 years, which is what it typically takes for a PhD in computer science. I'm sure Bobby had talked about that a little bit. But that gave us the freedom to be so creative. I think the prerequisite is you have to be in the program for at least 1 or 2 semesters before you take it. And that's just so that you have some experience within the program and you can get some ideas, creative ideas about how to apply some of the things that you're learning in the program toward if you wanted to attain a PhD. That's not to say that after you take this, you're ready for a PhD. It just gives you an idea of some of the work that's involved in working toward a PhD.
Yeah, and I know that in both Professor Joyner and Professor Goel's classes, projects that students have gone on to become published research. The professors have co-published the research with OMSCS students. So that's another way if you're looking to continue on with research or work in that realm after you graduate. There are opportunities if you reach out to your professors to continue and maybe try and publish some awesome innovative research. So our next question, do organizations in the IT industry give equal end programs when compared to on-campus ones? And before you answer that, I'm just going to jump in and I'm wondering if that's a prospective student. And for those who are prospective students, when your degree just says Masters of Science in Computer Science, the same as the on-campus, it doesn't say anything different. So Scott, if you want to take the question from there.
It's something that I always generally volunteer. So the way Georgia Tech actually approaches the program, OMSCS is nothing but it's just another campus. So when you go and you enroll, you're not going to an online page or anything. You're enrolling the same way every other student enrolls. You're enrolling in the exact same course. And in fact, as you were mentioning, Dr. Goal, he teaches a number of courses here, but he also teaches the very same courses on campus. So he would basically, especially the first couple of semesters, independently, he would compare the work and compare the quality and because there was always the question of if it's online, what about the caliber and the quality of the students also? Can they keep up with the campus? And to his and many other people's surprises, the online students wound up actually outdoing the ones on campus. And I think part of it is attributed to the fact that the students that are online tend to be much more mature, and many of us are already in IT. So we have the advantage of having the experience of working with their various projects where a lot of the students on campus, they're basically professional students. They've had no real world experience. So they're really learning in an truly academic environment, not actually having to apply real world use cases. So I think that's why the quality was different. So the answer to that is, it is not a MOOC. It's not like edX, and the quality is starting to get better. But I was also saying something like this. I've seen some of the recordings from Yale, Harvard, Cornell, MIT, and essentially I was equating. It's like they took a camera, stuck it in a classroom, and recorded the professor. So you're basically another figure. Here, the way the program is formatted, it's as if the professor is talking to each and every one of you. And you can do something that you can't do in a classroom. You can rewind, you can replay. If the professor's going too slow, you can speed it up because you already know the material. And you can always go back. So I find the quality at the data or the information that's being fed to us to be much more enriched. So the answers to the question is the same. If anything, I think it could be it's probably in some respect even better. And anybody else who has any question, you can talk, like Brittany just opened up. If I show you my diploma, which is hanging up from the wall, I'm not going to pull it down now. There is no distinction that it's on campus, and you can rest assured that and one more last thing, the midterms and the finals that the students on campus get, we're getting the exact same thing. So when they're comparing the grades, they're comparing the scores, they're comparing the statistics, because a lot of the course grading is based on a statistical curve, as we all, if you're in the program. So it's the same. The same professors, same curriculum, same schedule, same deadlines. So there's no difference.
On the flip side of that, the employers, we have a lot of corporate partners who we've seen from them time and time again that we see it the same as we view, to interview one MSCS student, one on the view playing field when we're if you've experienced the same thing, roles that companies just view it as a master's in computer science in a very All right. Okay. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. So what kind of roles did people take after finishing the program? In particular, what about people who didn't do, for example, the person asking this is a data scientist considering the program?
This is another excellent question. So I find that with this particular program, you're going to be qualified for a lot of different types of roles, and the reason why I'm thinking through the answer, I'm going to do something a little different, because you mentioned that you're a data scientist and you're considering the OMSCS program, and I know that recently there's a new program in the OMSCS program that's specifically toward data analysis, right? So, Jason, I think you would probably want to look very much into that if you want to stay in the data science space. But the role that today, again, when I opened up, I indicated that machine learning and AI is very, very hot out there. And in fact, Udacity continues to push for this. There's so many opportunities they're still looking for developers in self-driving cars, autonomous cars in development. And in data science also is a lot about machine learning. So if you're intrigued about the biggest demand in IT today is data science or machine learning. And as far as any other particular roles, for example, a common role that I would see in IT is project management. There's some aspects of it that you do in project management, but it's not a formal project. It's not like it's not part of the standard project management. I'm trying to remember what the organization was that makes you a PMP. But you can get into engineering type of work because you really do get a good understanding of it. And if you don't do development work, you're guaranteed you will be doing development because most of the courses have some level of coding that has to be done. So I hope that helps, Jason.
Another thing that I would say, a trend we've noticed amongst students who have graduated, students who are taking new jobs, graduate from the program, there's a trend towards students using and leveraging the program jobs with companies, specific companies that they have wanted to work for example, like Google, that they haven't been able to break into, kind of pushes them over the edge of having the type of qualifications and skills and competence to get those more jobs that they've been wanting. And so not only have we seen students, use the program to positions that they couldn't have gained before into a more technical role, but also to specifically pursue working with companies that they've always, and now they have the possibility of doing it because of the program. Yep. So yeah, the student stories are amazing. In media, you'll find so many stories.
And I just want to add to that, it's also because it's Georgia Tech. Right? Georgia Tech is one of the highest ranking. And so we have a program here. This is the thing that's unique. And this is why, one of the things I consider this program. I knew I wasn't going to pick up I live in New Jersey, and I wasn't going to move to Atlanta or any place else for school. I also didn't want to spend $40,000 or $50,000 for a graduate program when I just mentioned that I have 2 kids in college. So I wasn't about to take it and make it 3 kids in college to pay for. So the other incentive was that this was the type of program where you could literally write a check out each semester and pay for the entire semester, where I can't quite do that for my kid. So the thing that gives you the opportunity at Google, Microsoft, Apple, you came from Georgia Tech. The online is fantastic for us because it allows us to continue to have a life. We can work full time. We can still spend time with family. We can do things that, as opposed to having to take a sabbatical, shut everything down, and just dedicate yourself. So that was the other thing I found to be invaluable to the program, and one of the reasons why I got into this. I thought it was a terrific opportunity that I didn't think we see again.
Absolutely. And like we were talking about with networking or these given companies, there's a high, likelihood that you're going to have someone there that you can connect with. And we've had a lot of jump into roles in other companies through student connections. And so it's an opportunity being in the program. Okay, so we have one final question that's actually kind of focused on JPMorgan. So I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer or not, but I'm just going to ask it anyways. This person's wondering how important or helpful it is to have a PhD or just continued education to be successful in data science at places like JPMorgan.
Well, first and foremost, attaining a PhD is an accomplishment in and of itself. I think if you have a PhD and you know how to apply it, you pretty much have I could say you can write your own ticket, but in some roles, if you have certain roles, you may be overqualified if you have a PhD. So you have to take that into consideration. If you go for a PhD, you should have a very specific type of career that you're planning on and make sure that it applies. Because, for example, if you wanted to be a project manager and you have a PhD, it might be a little bit of an overkill. The PhD is really about research. JPMorgan Chase and other corporations and companies absolutely can use PhD. For example, Google has a whole army of PhDs that do nothing but the level of research to create these algorithms that they create. That's a given. It's just what type of PhD and whether or not it's applicable to a corporation like JPMC or any other company. That's just something that you would have to investigate yourself and see if it makes sense to pursue a PhD for that company. So I know for a fact that JPMorgan Chase has PhDs, but it depends on the area that you want to focus on and whether or not it's applicable to the company that you want to go to.
Let's recommend that you watch the last seminar recording with Bobby. She specifically talked about getting your PhD and why would you innovation. And one thing that she stressed was that it is a research degree. So have an interest in your career trajectory and doing research, go for it. and ultimately in your role, that's not something that you're interested in, then maybe is what you should tackle instead. So yeah, thank you. That was a great question. Well, I think we are pretty much out of time. I don't see any last minute questions. So I just want to say, Scott, thanks again. I appreciate you sharing all your knowledge and experience with us. And if students or prospective students or alumni want to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that? Should they connect with me, send me an email, or do you have a contact that you would prefer?
They can certainly go through you. They can contact me directly. You have my first name and last name in the description. It's first name last name at gmail.com. So you can reach out to me that way. I'll be more than happy to help in any way I can. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to help you and pay it forward. I really do appreciate it. And thanks for your time tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to watch this recording, we'll post this next week. And if you want to watch our previous recording your PhD and using the OMSCS program to get there, and then Ebony Bell from AT&T, who's a current student at AT&T, about just how to navigate the program in general. Both of those are on Computing's YouTube channel. So we'll share those links periodically on our social media channels as well, but you can go directly to the Georgia Tech College of Computing YouTube channel to watch all of those. So thank you, everyone, for participating. Next month, just a little preview. We're going to be in honor of Veterans Day about our current military students and also leveraging the program in your transition out of the military or as a veteran, a graduate of the program. Look out for information on that. Thanks again. We appreciate it. And with your career and everything that you've got going on in your life. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.